other news, the Judicial Services Commission has decided not to recommend any candidate to fill the position of chair of the Water Tribunal. 2 candidates have been interviewed. It is the final day of those interviews today to fill courts, including positions in the Supreme Court of Appeal, the Competition Appeal Court and the Electoral Court. Tumaole Mohlaoli joins us now. He's spent the day at the Judicial Services Commission. I say the day, really the week. Tumaole, good afternoon to you. I'd actually forgotten that the JSC appoints a chair or recommends a chair. Maybe I'd never known that they recommend a chair for the position of Water Affairs Tribunal. What happened in these interviews?
Well, what happened in these interviews, Stephen, is that the candidates were deemed not to be worth recommending from the Commission side to the President for the position of Water Tribunal chairperson. So we had 2 candidates who were putting their name into the mix, into the hat, if one could use that, that saying. That was Advocate Marke and Ms. L.H. Malema, no relation to one Julius Malema, who happens to be a commissioner at the JSC. But so what happened is these candidates had, fielded some questions about an understanding of what the tribunal is all about and the position of the chairperson. It must be stated that Advocate Marke had previously occupied that position, and so the questions were about what had been done, what had been achieved, what had been done in terms of transforming the Water Tribunal, and also what had been done in terms of enforcing the Water Tribunal's work. Advocate Marke started by saying that, of course, transformation is also an issue when it comes to the privatization of water and the management of water boards. This was quite interesting. He was pushed on that in terms of what he has done, in terms of making sure that legislation is pushed to try and transform the management of water. Now, it is quite interesting because what came out is that there are these bodies that are basically overseeing the management of water resources. When one looks at the current conditions in South Africa, in many parts of the world, with the scarcity of water as a resource and, of course, with the drought situation, with climate change, water is now becoming something of a very valuable commodity. And what the Water Tribunal seeks to do is it seeks to adjudicate when there are disputes about the management of water and the distribution of water. And what was interesting was Advocate Marke was saying that in terms of his rulings and some of the findings he has made, especially when it comes to the privatization of water, he felt that it was something that is outrageous, that the Constitution guarantees for South Africans access to clean water as one of its provisions. However, with the privatization of water, that seems to be working against the Constitution. He was pushed on whether, of course, his understanding in terms of legal precepts, whether that was applied in some of those some of those judgments and some of those findings. And he had some interesting answers to give.
The National Water Act is part of what they call remedial legislation. And remedial legislations, as envisaged in our Constitution, are intended to reverse the imbalances of the past that came with colonial government and apartheid government, number 1. Number 2, the preamble of the National Water Act, amongst others, make it very clear that the water resources of this country belong to the people of the Republic of South Africa, and the Minister of Water and Sanitation, in terms of Section 3 of the National Water Act, is the custodian of the waters in this country.
There's a big conversation, Tumaole, about the privatization of the water sector. I mean, this is very complicated. I mean, I may have a bottle of water, that's my water. I mean, but is it? It gets quite complicated. What does he say about it?
Well, he said that in terms of how the privatization of water resources has been handled, that it goes against the spirit of the Constitution, because he says these private water institutions or private water companies or private water provision, if you can say, boards that are springing up and effectively selling water off at a rate to also local municipalities is illegal. He says that this is something that he's been working in terms of when there are disputes brought before the tribunal. That informs the kind of judgments and the kind of rulings he has put forward. So he says that this effectively what's happening, those in the position of having access to resources, those who would have benefited historically, even in the previous dispensation, have a head start. Therefore, they can afford to privatize and monetize water. This leaves those who are coming from previously disadvantaged communities, which are currently disadvantaged as we speak also, at a bit of a losing end. So there is also a lack of transformation as far as that's concerned, and he feels that some of the findings he has made in his tenure during the chairpersonship of the Water Tribunal sought to try and balance those scales and try to push a transformative agenda whereby water and access to clean water could be a right for all without a cost.
Nobody in this country owns the water resources. Now, water trading, those are commercial transactions. And in any sale transaction, there is the seller and the buyer. So a seller must sell something that he owns. And I'm prepared to withdraw my statement if somebody can come and prove to us that I own the natural water resources in this country. Then I will withdraw my statement. Because if you sell something that you don't own, there's a problem with that.
Fascinating, Tumaole, as you point out. I mean, this is the person who's been leading the Water Affairs Tribunal, doesn't get recommended by the Judicial Services Commission to stay on. Yes, there's so much to it. Tumaole Mohlaoli, thanks very much indeed, our reporter who's been covering the JSC interviews over the last week. Well,